we now hear from John Maslen, Network Development Manager in Scotland for Ener-Vate, who's going to talk about the key learnings from a decade of heat network projects. Another John. Give him a round of applause.
The clock's running. The clock's running. That's not fair.
That's the main. Fight me.
Right. Good morning, all. Nice to be here. No, I'm not going to do a sizzling samba in front of you. Don't worry. 10, 10, 10 is what I'm going to talk about this morning. Unfortunately, Craig, as normal, has ruined the party, but I couldn't actually find a picture of Craig giving a 10, so that's the best I could do. It is 10 years of this conference, and I think I've been to most of them. It's 10 years that Ener-Vate have been in existence, so we would like to give you the benefit of our 10 years of being in business with heat networks. It's 10 key learnings I want to pass over to you this morning, and I've got 10 minutes to do it in. So it's going to be a challenge, so let's get going. Ener-Vate is a commercial heat network consultancy. So what we do is help, in this case, public bodies, but we also help private ones, learn from our past experience and ensure that their projects stack up commercially. In particular, they avoid the pitfalls that others have ended up in, and ultimately, they deliver successful heat network projects. So last year, my colleague Joe Longdon, who's one of our directors, presented to you. And this year, Joe has not been available today, so Steve gets to stand instead in her shoes. So Steve Hunt is, again, one of our directors, is in the audience. So save up any awkward questions for Steve. Do corner him during the breaks at our stand, and he'd be delighted to speak to you. So I won't go into any more about what we do, but do come and talk to us if you want to know more. We work across the UK, not just public sector bodies, but also private sector ones. We work closely with the next speaker, with Nick at Vital, on some projects, not exclusively, but certainly we've got a very good relationship. We work with Leeds Pipes, who is a big and high-profile project in Leeds, running a heat network there. And we work with Manchester. Both of them are good examples of public sector bodies that have taken the initiative and are developing heat network projects themselves, driving them forward. We also work in Glasgow, and many of you may not have come across this. Maybe if you were here last year, you would have heard Joe speak about it. This is our Clyde Heat project. This is in central Glasgow. This is going to be one of the highest profile heat network projects in Scotland. It has got funding from the Scottish Government, and we are taking it forward actively as we speak. So let's move on to our top 10 learnings. In the style of the countdown, a hit countdown, I've sort of locked Joe and Steve in a virtual room, and we've come up with this top 10. So at number 10, heat networks are technically challenging and commercially challenging large-scale infrastructure projects. Well, that's pretty much the bleeding obvious, I'm afraid, but worth pointing out, even if it is at number 10, they have probably 4 to 7 year development timescales. But more importantly, they have 40+ year operating timescales. So if you're not used to owning or managing such assets, you need to be thinking and planning for the long term. These projects are big strategic commitments. At number 9, don't rush in do take time to understand your role. If you're considering becoming a local regulated utility supplier, take the time to understand your options and their implications on your organization. Don't dive in. You need to pick the right sort of delivery model that has the right sort of risk and reward mix that suits your organization, suits your management team, and their attitude to risk and reward. At number 8, engage your key stakeholders. And don't just do this sort of mid-project, do it from an early stage. Map their roles out, engage with them at multiple levels. As we said, heat networks need strategic planning, and you can't afford to have lots of players, particularly in your local area, all pulling in different directions with different agendas. You need coordination. So get those stakeholders in a room and start discussing how you're going to do this. Right, we're into the top 6. At number 6, understand the value that you can bring to the table. Local authorities have lots of value. Sometimes you underestimate the value that you can bring. You are effectively the zone coordinator role. You have a key planning role. You're a landowner. You're an asset owner. You have access to customers. You have access to funding. You have access to low-cost finance. You are going to dilute the commercial perception of private sector developers. You have the capacity to distribute social and economic value. These are all really valuable things. You need to make sure that you appreciate the value that you can bring. At number 5, make sure that the partners that you pick are picked carefully. If you're going to go into a third-party JV, fully appreciate the commercial position that that third party brings to the table. What are their ambitions? What long-term value do they offer you? Will they commit to meeting your project drivers? At number 4, prioritize those project drivers. What are they? There are lots of key drivers for heat networks. It's quite easy to say that our focus is on net zero building assets. It's on fuel poverty. It's on reducing air quality or improving air quality. It's on financial returns to the council. It's on our legislative compliance or climate targets. But more often than not, you can't do all these things at all the same time at once. You need to prioritize which one takes priority over others. Right, into the top 3. God, it's getting exciting now. I can tell. You're tantalizing. It's tantalizing what's going to be at number 1. Your commercial model should underpin most decisions. Sorry, let's go. Your commercial model is utterly critical to the life cycle of your project. Is your project viable? Is it investable? It needs to be developed early on. It needs to be constantly revised, and it needs to be improved in line with your project variations and your stakeholder expectations. Don't do it at the start and leave it standing. Okay, number 2, use a team of advisors. How are we doing for time? Okay, use a team of advisors. I hate to say it, but if your procurement thinks you can pick one supplier and get all the expertise you need from that one particular company, that is probably not going to be the case. There are very few, if any, companies out here that can provide you with commercial, technical, legal, and financial expertise to cover the delivery of a heat network. You need to pull specialist advisors together into a team and deliver all of these services together. And finally, at number 1, woohoo! Okay, so know thy customer. Think about your customer. Who are the key ones? What drivers do they have? Don't think about customers at the end of the day. Do they want to take a bulk load of heat, or do they want heat delivered to their building? Are they tenants or are they landlords? What sort of loads do they have? Where can we get data on loads and understand the customer situation, customer landscape more clearly? This is really critical. most importantly, what is their price sensitivity? How do we understand what their counterfactual, what their comparator is going to be? Are they going to ultimately say, that's all very well, but the gas price is down here and your heat network price is up here? How are we going to fill that gap? And I'm afraid to say that that low-cost price for heat from a heat network is likely to be higher than the current one at gas. So that is a critical agenda item that we need to address. But know thy customer, number one thing, and don't underestimate how important that is. What's going to happen over the next 10 years? 15 seconds. It's a long and winding road, as the Beatles would say, and this is a photo here of the Liverpool Heat Energy Centre, and we need lots more of these across our cities. The 300 terawatts of gas that we're using for heat and hot water in our businesses and homes across the UK every year, a lot of that is coming from Norway, Qatar, and USA. Does that make sense? Surely it can't. Surely that is a massive economic opportunity. Can it be done? Yes, of course it can. But we do need our governments, I say governments, to be fully committed to a gas-free future for heating our buildings. And only then will they get a 10 from me. Thank you.
He's good, you know, isn't he? He's good. Excuse me. And the key thing that you said for me was know your value, know the value you bring to the table. Who in the room knows their value of the job they do? Put hands in the air if you think you know your value. Come on, this is sad. If you don't know how darn good you are, right, your value will increase today because you will know things that you didn't know before. If you genuinely don't know your value, can I ask you a really searching question? Why are you doing what you do? Your value to Scotland is enormous, not just in the technical things that you do, but in creating jobs, creating wealth, bringing this economy back to where it needs to be. If you don't recognise your value, find somebody who does. You have a real opportunity here. Next up.